Joe?
Yes.
When you get a chance.
Yes. Mr. Gallo, please account number 2.
Good evening, everyone. Would you please join us in a salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2014 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2013, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier?
Here.
Ms. Leventhal? Here. Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies to be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public in any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, it does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussion of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 20th meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. We are going to have a proclamation for Emergency Medical Services Week. Mrs. Larrier will do that. After that, we have a resolution appointing a new sergeant of our police department, and we'll have the oath of office right after that. Then we'll have our first public comment period. Anyone who would like to address the Township Committee can come up here and give us your name and address and share your views with us. We have then a resolution to read the municipal budget by title, and we'll have our budget amendment hearing. We will not be doing the adoption of the budget this evening. We're still working on some numbers. We got some information from the state that we have to factor into our decision-making. We have an ordinance on final passage, and that is the capital budget. And there'll be a public hearing. If anyone wants to speak on the capital budget, we'll ask you to come up at that time. We have two new ordinances, one to eliminate the fees for outdoor cafes, and the second to adjust certain fees in the police department and the Records Bureau. Then we'll have a resolution calling for the immediate action to get the young women that have been abducted in Nigeria returned. We have 4 discussion items. One is we'll be discussing First Night. 2, we'll be discussing 9 Essex Avenue and the removal of debris there. We'll be talking about a proposal from the South Mountain Y to add air conditioning to a room at the Civic House, and then we'll be talking about expansion of parking on the west side of the former Women's Club. We have a consent agenda which consists of a couple of resolutions, bills and claims, and approval of minutes of meetings. We'll have our second public comment period. We'll have administrative reports and reports from elected officials. And that'll be our meeting this evening. And as I said earlier, the first order of business is to ask Mrs. Larrier to proclaim Emergency Medical Services Week. And I think we have a bunch of folks here who are going to invite you to come on up here and join Mrs. Larrier from the fire department and the first aid squad and the police department, I guess. You're all too shy to come on up?
Don't be shy. Don't leave me up here.
You can come on up.
Don't leave me up here by myself.
Come on, EMS people.
Come on. New sergeant, almost.
All right.
Well, thank you and good evening. Up here? Everybody who's coming is here. This is a proclamation for Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams must be ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas the members of the Maplewood Volunteer First Aid Squad and the Maplewood Fire Department engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas the members of the Maplewood Volunteer First Aid Squad and the Maplewood Fire Department stand ready to provide life-saving care to those in need, and whereas Maplewood citizens benefit daily from the knowledge and skills of these highly trained volunteers and firefighter EMTs, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of the township's EMS providers, now, therefore, Mayor Victor DeLuca, on behalf of the Township Committee, does hereby proclaim the week of May 18th through 24th, 2014, as Emergency Medical Services Week in the Township of Maplewood. And I would also like to make a special commendation to the outgoing captain of the Maplewood Volunteer First Aid Squad, Captain, actually gone, yes, Captain Gene, as I called him. He left, I believe he went in to be a corrections officer. Captain Gene joined the squad in 2008 and became a crew chief within a year because he was so dedicated. In 2010, he became first lieutenant, and in 2011, after the untimely death of longtime Captain Bruce Mandel, he became captain of the squad. And as a result of his tireless work, that squad has managed to stay in service. He has also trained Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. He became a CPR instructor of his own volition, and I would just, even though he's not here, I would like to recognize him for all of his service to our township. And thank you very much.
Now that we have it official that this is EMS week here in Maplewood, we do want to recognize our own Elizabeth Fritzen for 40 years of EMS service in Springfield First Aid Squad.
Started when you were 5, right?
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yes, yes. Okay. Next up, we'll ask anyone who would like to speak to the Township Committee.
I know.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, we're gonna hold up. Here we have a resolution appointing a new sergeant. Ms. Fritzen, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution number 106-14 is a resolution appointing Patrolman Michael Anthony Palmarazzi to Sergeant of the Maplewood Police Department. Whereas the position of Sergeant in the Police Department of Maplewood has become vacant, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Maplewood has conducted interviews to fill the position of Sergeant in the Police Department, and whereas it has been determined that Patrolman Michael Anthony Palmarazzi is qualified for the position, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Maplewood, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that Patrolman Michael Anthony Pamarazzi be and is hereby appointed to the position of Sergeant in the Maplewood Police Department in the Township of Maplewood, effective May 26, 2014.
Riley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this resolution.
I second it.
Let's call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, congratulations.
solemnly swear. That I will. Support the Constitution. Of the United States. The Constitution. That I will bear. True faith. The government established. In this state. And the United States. Authority. That I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of Congratulations, Sergeant.
Unofficial till you sign. Speech.
I'll make this short and sweet, but I'd just like to take this time to thank Chief Semino, Mayor DeLuca, and the entire Township Committee for this
Broke it.
opportunity tonight to be here. Also like to thank my sister Laura for always being there for me, and especially during this time of the promotion. We'll also like to thank my girlfriend Danielle for understanding and being supportive that there's going to be a change, obviously, going on with this step of becoming a sergeant in the Maplewood Police Department. In closing, I'd like to say I will do the job of sergeant in the Maplewood Police Department to the best of my ability here. Thank you guys again.
Thank you very much. So if you guys want to leave, there's no hard feelings.
We'll understand. We'll understand.
You want to stage a shot? Is that what you want to do? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Great job.
Get a picture with your girlfriend here. Come on. You can do multiples. My father got passed over.
Congratulations. She was
Joe, what is his sister's assistant manager?
works at the pool.
Assistant manager? Yeah, she's the assistant manager, yeah. Okay, now we are going to get to the public comment period. Anyone who would like to address the Township Committee, please come up and share your comments with us. Of course.
Good evening, Mayor DeLuca and members of the Township Committee. I am Deborah Collins, the Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for the County of Essex and the county's liaison to the Township of Maplewood. There are no new announcements this evening. However, I would like to remind the public...
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
It's the first aid squad. Yeah, it's all your first aid squad.
There's only
Go
one
ahead,
person.
sorry.
Exactly.
There are no new announcements this evening. However, I would like to remind the public, specifically small woman-owned and minority businesses, that we are hosting a seminar on Thursday, this coming Thursday, the 22nd, at 10 o'clock a.m. from 10 to noon at McClune's Boathouse Restaurant in West Orange. And the topic is digital marketing. There'll be a panel discussion, and while we are close to the date, there's still a few slots available. So if anyone is interested in joining us, please do call us at 973-621-2011. That's 973-621-2011 to attend our digital marketing workshop at McClune's. There are no other announcements, but if you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Nope. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening.
Good evening. Could you pull the mic down? There you go. Oh.
My name is Lynette Robinson, and I live at 13 Maple Terrace. And we've had I've come here several times over the past few years. Lately, as the work is being done on Maple Terrace, we have encountered some problems, and I'm not quite sure if we are getting the bad end of the stick or whatever it is. But what is happening in front of my house, everything is dumped there. The last time the engineers, they were working there, you couldn't see my house. This time, I just told one of the contractors not to leave the big equipment in front of my house. You know, so what he did, they're putting the concrete that are taken out from the other street in front of the house. Since you've been working on Maple Terrace, for the first time, I was completely flooded out. My sewer system was blocked by the work that was done in the street. And what has happened, I have over $10,000, $12,000 worth of damage. Never had it in the 30 years that I've lived there. Two of my neighbors who had two sump pumps in their basement has been flooded out the last time we had a flood. We had rain. My neighbor, the Jeffries, told me, Mayor, that you came to visit, and that was very amicable of you. When she complained the last time she was here, she saw it was like a lake behind her house and in my area. I have been asking the board for years. My husband is not here. I've been asking you guys to put a pipe in the part of my yard where the easement is, so it will help to take off the runoff. What has happened is that you've put a pipe in the yard on Mountain Avenue, but the people there's my neighbor behind me and the one in front of me, it's completely open. And so what has happened now, since that you're working on the system, everyone is being flooded out. So they're coming now to ask me, what were you talking about? No one was interested before. But now that everyone is being flooded, everyone is wanting to know, coming into the yard now to see what the problem is. Now they're getting to understand. What I'm asking is that if you put that pipe, because my garage is affected, if you put that pipe there, like what you have in front of the front part of the yard, what will happen is that it will help to take, even though you're putting that system, you still need to have that drainage come through the yard. And I'm asking you to take a second look. I've been working with the engineers, but he's just giving me the runaround. So my question is, what are you guys going to do about 13 Maple Terrace, whereby most of the water is coming down into the drainage?
Mr. Manning?
Yes, we'll look at it, but that was an unprecedented amount of water. You know, that was five inches of water in 2.5 hours.
Well, I could tell you we've had more water than that, and I've never, my neighbors have never. And I got water, I got flooded out when we had the snow. And it was not my sewer, because there was no sewer. It was from the road.
Well, what we can do...
And I don't know if that was brought to your attention.
Right. Did the engineer come and speak to you?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
It took me twice for him to come and see it. And also, I also called Public Work, because when the contractors pulled out, Maplewood looked like a war zone. Everything was dirty. They did not clean the street. It was terrible. And even if you come in now to look at Maple Terrace, it is terrible. You could see the difference between Milburn and Maplewood. Why?
Mayor.
It never happened before.
Okay, let Mr. Manning.
First of all, we'll go out and look at it again. We've looked at it several times. It has been discussed. We'll have to get, months go by, 6 months, 8 months. I don't remember right off the top of my head. We'll go out and look at it again. The project's not finished. Actually, they've just ramped up and are doing major construction right at the moment. They typically do not clean, each day, but wait till the end of the project. She may have legitimate concerns. I'll go out with the engineer and
Have
we'll
you ever
give a
come to
report.
Maple Terrace before?
Yes, of course.
I have not seen you.
Well, it doesn't mean he hasn't been there.
Okay. Because it's not only that this is a new engineer. In fact, some of the paperwork, for instance, my easement, he couldn't find my easement. There's nowhere around. Now, because of some of the movement in the house, I can't find mine, but I have it. But I have given the town, we have given the town, because we've been living here since 1984, 85. And since then, we've been talking about it. And if you remember, it's my husband that went around and came back to the engineer here and told him that we did not have enough outlets to take off the water that was running down. You put a pipe in my neighbor behind me. And my garage, I'm the only one that have the physical plant of the property is being affected. No one else has. The drainage run right into the garage.
They'll take a look at it again. I mean, it's, I've been to your house.
I've had three of my neighbors come into the yard now. I mean, all the years I've been complaining, nobody showed an interest. But all of a sudden, they're showing an interest. There's also a house next door to me. I think it's 15. It's been vacant for about 4 or 5 years. We've had raccoons. I've had the raccoon in my garage. I have big rats in my garage. I had to do everything to get rid of it. Now we're getting vandals coming into the house. Sometimes we have to call the town because they don't clean the yard. It's a mess. Somebody needs to look into it.
We'll look into that. 15 Maple Terrace.
Yes.
Foreclosed house?
It
We don't
says
know
in bankruptcy, I'm not quite sure.
All right.
Okay?
Yes. Mr. Manning will take responsibility to get back to you, and either he or Mr. Malavasi will get back
Your
to you.
name, sir?
I'll give you a call.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. I'm Gary Nelson, 79 Durand Road. I want to speak about the Women's Club, and I have here a statement from the Historic Preservation Commission, of which, for the record, I'm a member. Maplewood Historic Preservation Commission is deeply concerned over the proposed additional parking at the former Women's Club building. This plan for the destruction of surrounding green space and subsequent paving of the area seems completely at odds with the designation of this important structure as a local historic landmark. It disregards the contextual setting of the noteworthy building and of its role as a graceful transition from adjacent commercial areas to the east to an attractive residential street to the west. In fact, the front facade of the building was beautifully and deliberately designed to integrate seamlessly with the neighboring single-family residences. Placement of the structure on the gently sloping lot and the carefully planned buffer of trees and green space further enhances the visual transition. This proposed plan for additional parking spaces would obliterate the green space, which has matured so gracefully over the decades since its inception. The loss of this space and the canopy of shade provided by many mature trees will forever detract from the pleasant vista that now exists. It will severely and negatively alter the spatial orientation of the landmark building. Harmonious streetscapes and integral green spaces serve as important backdrops to the individual buildings that make up the fabric of Maplewood. They are among the things that attract residents to live here. They should be treasured and preserved, not compromised or worse, completely destroyed. Once gone, they are gone for the ages. The planned destruction of the natural space through excavation and paving with impervious materials also poses a possible, if significant, threat to the structural integrity of the building, causing significant runoff and danger to the foundation. We, the members of the Historic Preservation Commission, urge you to scrap this plan for additional parking, ask that you preserve the green space that so intimately frames the very structure you wisely designated as a local landmark only about a year ago. In addition, we want to reiterate our role as advisors to you, the Township Committee, on decisions relating to historic sites and structures in Maplewood. Our members bring to the table collective years of expertise in architecture, architectural history, design, and preservation. We stand ready to provide you valuable insights and counsel, preferably early on in the planning process.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? This is the time.
My name is Lisa Carey. I live at 70 Woodland Road. Hopefully you all got a letter from our attorneys today. I'm sorry it was so late, but it was emailed to you. If you don't have a copy, I have a copy here. Did you all get this letter?
No.
That came in the email, right?
Yeah.
You got it? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you didn't get it. Okay.
I didn't get a copy.
Okay. Well, anyway.
I'll get you a copy.
Right here.
Essentially, our argument is that the west side of the, I'm sorry, 70 Woodland is adjacent to the west side of the Women's Club. Essentially, our argument is that the west side of the building is zoned residential. Therefore, the building of a parking lot would obviously be inconsistent with the zoning ordinances. I understand that there is a process for obtaining a variance, but the town has not gone through with that process. So it's our position that if you want to build a parking lot, you, like any other private homeowner, is going to have to apply for a variance. I dare say that if you were a private property owner, you would never get a variance to build a parking lot such as you have proposed. I understand that you've scaled it back, and I truly appreciate that. But it's our position that there should be absolutely no building on the west side of the property. I also want to bring to the attention of the public that we've now spent $1 million to buy this property. You're about to embark on another several $100,000 to build a parking lot, which, as I look at the plans, would add 20 parking spaces. I mean, 20 parking spaces. You're going to be tearing down, your plans also indicate that you will be removing 18 trees, many of which are mature, old trees which have been there for years. While I understand that more parking may be needed, I think that this plan is very short-sighted. As I understand it, there's been some talk about a tiered level parking lot, some property in the town. I understand that this isn't complete yet and that you need parking by January, but the addition of 20 parking spaces just seems to be a little bit premature at this point. I also think that if you want to rent this property out and you add a parking lot on the west side, it's ugly, quite frankly. What should be there, as indicated as the last speaker who spoke, is it's very pretty right now. It's green, it's growing. I mean, what should be there? What should be put there is a terrace. There's no outdoor space here, not a black parking lot. Lastly, we have seen nothing this entire time about any need for parking. We're not here to disrupt the post office plan. We understand that's important, and I truly appreciate that there has been what seems to me a very amiable dialogue between the public and the township about what is being done at the post office site. We're not here to mess that up, but certainly we can go back to the contractor and ask him. From what I've been told, the entire parking lot is going to be utilized by the construction company. But can't we go back to the contractor and ask him to save 20 spaces of that parking lot? I really want to emphasize that we really just want to start a dialogue here. We really feel so adamant, the entire community feels so adamant about that west side of the parking lot. As it is, no one parks there. You can drive down there any time of day. There is no one parked in the Women's Club. And I know that's going to change, but people still think it's too far. So I just ask you to truly consider, to drive down our street. I mean, I dare say that I think I'm probably in the top 5% of taxpayers. With that parking lot, I don't know what's going to happen to the value of my property. You're going up to my property line. You're tearing down 18 trees. I really ask that you think about this in the long term. Do you really want a parking lot on that side of the building where they have beautiful doors that open up to the beautiful outside and you're going to open up to black pavement? So hopefully we can come to an amiable agreement on this matter. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee?
Hello, I'm Sarah Glickman. I live at 1 Kermit Road in Maplewood. I came here because of the Women's Club. I actually know the Women's Club very, very well. I'm a board member of the Y, and as part of our fundraising years ago, we used to do a haunted house there. Neighbors loved that. But I know every nook and cranny, and it's clearly an old building, but it's a beautiful building. And the outside is one of the charms of just living in Maplewood. I walk down that road pretty much every day, multiple times. And to me, it is Maplewood. It's a beautiful old building, clearly in need of historical renovation, of thoughtful planning, of something that Maplewood can be proud of. It's been here for over 100 years, you know, the same as many of our houses. I look around here, I look at all the pictures. There's no parking lots. I get it's 1700 and 1800 and 1900, but this picture behind you, if I were to repaint that, it would look pretty sad. There's a song about, you know, don't give up paradise and put in a parking lot. I frankly am absolutely shocked as even a consideration. I just ask all of you to, you know, think about Maplewood, think about New Jersey and how green we are, think about your neighbors, think about walking down the streets of the neighborhood and what you'd like to see. It's a residential area. It is not, I mean, it clearly is adjacent to the town, as most of our properties are. Most of us live, you know, 5-6 minutes. Some of us are lucky enough to live 5-6 minutes away from town. We don't want to walk past parking lots. We don't want to walk past masses of traffic. We want to walk to a beautiful town with lovely facilities, with amazing historical buildings that have been thoughtfully preserved, and really have a long-term view. This is not a short-term fix for taxes. It's not a short-term fix for, you know, what are we going to do with the post office and to build a new King's. I mean, we have to renovate our town in a thoughtful way. We have to make sure that our town is ready for the next 100 years. I just don't see how a parking lot at the Women's Club does anything to help that plan. Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. My name is David Light. I'm at 80 Woodland Road. Lisa is one of my neighbors. I agree with really all of the comments that I've heard tonight about the plan with respect to the Women's Club, and won't repeat them, especially because I was also going to quote Joni Mitchell. It just seems to me that this is a ill-conceived plan, frankly. As I understand it, we're going to gain 20 parking spots, which I don't think is going to solve the parking problem in Maplewood. I fully acknowledge that there is a parking problem in Maplewood. But for those 20 spots, I see that as a relatively small impact on public need for parking and a very major impact on the residents of Woodland Road, and particularly for the Careys, who I have to assume that if a parking lot is put up immediately adjacent to their house is going to have a very significant impact on their property values, and then probably a waterfall effect for others on the block. I'd also point out that Lisa mentioned that I think 16 or 18 trees are to be taken down. I hadn't even thought about that specific issue before I came today, but I know that when I put solar panels up on my roof, one of the issues was how much tree cover there was, and the solar company at one point wanted to take some of the trees down, ironically, to make this a more green installation. And I told them, A, I don't want to take down trees in the name of saving the environment for solar panels, but B, I looked into the tree ordinances, and tree ordinances in our town say that trees can't be taken down unless they're presenting an imminent threat to life or property because of their condition, once they're of a certain size in terms of the trunk. So I don't know if that's been looked at. I don't know. I don't know the zoning laws. I am a lawyer, but that's not my area. But it does seem to me from the letter that you received from Porzio that the zoning regulations are not being abided by here, and I don't know if there's some kind of reason that the town is exempt from its own zoning regulations, but I think it's almost beside the point. As Lisa said, I think that the neighbors want to be engaged in a productive dialogue about this, not getting involved in legal arguments and lawsuits. And what we have here just seems to me to be a bad idea that has very little gain, that's short-sighted, and it's going to have a major impact on the residents of Woodland Road, and particularly the Careys who are right next door.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Kurt Kiley, 506 Summit Avenue. I just wanted to say that I support everything that the previous speakers have said before me. I'm concerned about the loss of green space, impact to the character of the building. fearful for the structure of the building during construction. And I am very concerned that zoning sidestepped, make way for the parking. My understanding is these parking spaces are there to support post office development, the payment in lieu of parking. I find that very disturbing, that the rights of our citizens are being sidestepped for a private developer.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi, Rich Winter, 37 North Terrace. I don't want to repeat what anybody else has said. I just wanted to, and I know a little bit about the parking issues that are coming up because of the post office site. I think it is a space that it's a shame to lose, but it's even more so when it's being lost for what, at least to some degree, sounds like an interim or temporary problem because of the construction. So to lose a space like that for a problem that's going to be short-lived and therefore can either be muddled through or other options could be found seems to me to be particularly problematic. So I think I agree that this is a misallocation of resources in this case, and I would very much like to see the Township Committee look for other options for needed spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and there will be a second public hearing later on in the meeting. And this will be discussed a little later in the meeting when we get to the discussion items. Now moving to the resolution, item number 9, agenda.
Mayor, I have a resolution regarding the reading of the budget.
I have to find my script. The clerk will read the resolution.
Resolution to read the budget by title. Whereas NJSA 48-4-8, as amended, provides that the budget shall be read in full at the public hearing, or that it may be read by title only if, number one, at least 1 week prior to the date of the hearing, a complete copy of the approved budget, A, shall be made available for public inspection in the Free Public Library, if any of the municipality in the Free County Library or Regional Library located in the municipality, or if no county libraries or regional libraries are located in the municipality, the county or regional library of the county in which the municipality is located, and the public officer delegated responsibility for delivering copies of the approved budget to such library shall provide to the governing body an attestation that such delivery was made. B, copies are made available to each person requesting the same during the said week and during the public hearing. So now, therefore, be resolved by the governing body of the Township of Maplewood that is hereby declared that the conditions of NJSA 48-4-8, as amended, set forth in subsections 1A and 1B, have been met, and therefore the budget for 2014 shall be read by title only.
I think now.
Yeah, I offer the foregoing resolution and move its adoption.
I second the motion.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. And I'll entertain a motion. That resolution is adopted. I'll entertain a motion to open the hearing on the budget.
Mrs. Leventhal?
We didn't do 9. Okay. I move the budget hearing be opened.
I second.
Roll call. Mayor?
I second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mayor, this is the time fixed for the public hearing on the 2014 municipal budget. The budget was approved by the governing body on March 18, 2014, was advertised as required by law on March 27, 2014, together with notice of hearing for this time. Printed copies have been made available to the public during the past week, and the supply is here for anyone desiring a copy.
Anyone who wants a copy can come on up and get one. Okay. So basically, if you'd like to speak on the budget, the hearing, we're going to ask each person to give their name, come up to the microphone, your name and your address, and if you have any questions, please refer them to me, and this is only about the municipal budget, not the school or county matters. And we'll try to answer the questions you might have. So the budgets are on the clerk's office, the clerk's table over there. So we're now going to open the hearing on the 2014 municipal budget. Is there anyone who would like to speak on that? Okay, seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Mayor, I move that the hearing be closed.
I second the motion.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes?
Leventhal? Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mayor, I move that the adoption of this budget be postponed pending further review by the Township Committee.
Second the motion?
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Thank you. So basically, we normally have the hearing and vote at the same time on the budget, but we have received some information from the state that affects the budget, so we're going to go back and rework some of our anticipated expenses and revenue. Our goal is to come in with no more than, our goal when we started the process was to come in with no more than a 2% increase as required by law. We're trying to work to a lower percent increase than that, and we were set to do that, and then we got this information. So we are working with our accountants to try to figure out how to make all the numbers work out and keep the tax increase as low as possible. So that's our goal. So we decided to put it off, and we will be back here at the next meeting. Yes. So the next, and just so you know, the next meeting will not be in this building, but will be at the courthouse. What's the number up there?
1618.
1618 Springfield Avenue. It's the Police and Courts building. This room doesn't have air conditioning, so in the summer we move up there.
That'll be Wednesday, June 4th.
And it'll also be a different night because of the primary election, so it'll be Wednesday, June 4th. So we anticipate adopting the budget at that meeting if possible.
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 If the amendment requires an advertisement, we would have to advertise the amendment, then we would be able to adopt the budget
the following
7 days later or at the following meeting.
Okay. So if we can't do it because of whatever the regulations are, sometime in June, either the first meeting or the second meeting, we will adopt the budget. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to the ordinance on final passage.
Item number 13, ordinance number 2748-14, ordinance amending Section 3A of Bond Ordinance number 2744-14 of the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey, finally adopted March 18, 2014, in order to amend the appropriation in the second subsection and the total of subsection 3A.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on the ordinance for the capital budget? Seeing no one, we will take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Isn't there an additional
Mayor,
hearing? So
we're
it's-
going to have an additional hearing on Wednesday,
June 4th, right.
So it's not final.
Not final. So,
Okay. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed
no,
to...
can't do that.
You're going to move to table it to June 4th.
Right, move to table it to June 4th.
I move to table it till June 4th.
Right.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
And Mayor, on June 4th, there'll be an additional opportunity for the public to be heard.
Right, so we'll have another public hearing on June 4th. Okay.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, we have a motion on introduction.
Yes, Mayor, ordinance 2749-14, to amend Chapter 187 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Outdoor Cafes. This ordinance will eliminate the annual fee for securing an outdoor cafe license.
Mrs. Larry, would you let Mr. Ryan introduce this?
Sure.
That's very good of you.
Mr. Ryan has been suggesting this for so many years, he should take ownership of it.
I move the
If I can
passage. I
second.
move the passage of this ordinance on first reading. Its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, with the hearing to be held on Wednesday, June 4th, 2014.
I would gladly second that.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any discussion about this? Sorry, Mr. Brownlee. It's all right. You can second the next one. He was there. Okay, please call the ordinance on introduction.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yeah.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Introduction of a new ordinance.
Yes, Mayor. Item 15, ordinance number 2750-14. Is it to amend Chapter 123 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Fees. This ordinance will adjust certain fees for the Maplewood Police Department Record Bureau and court discovery pursuant to court rule.
My moment.
This is your moment.
I move the passage, introduction. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on June 4th, 2014.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
It's my moment. I had to draw it out.
Did a good job.
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we have a resolution, and Mr. Ryan, we're going to ask if Mrs. Larrier can second this.
That's fine.
Ms. Leventhal, would you like to read the resolution title?
Resolution calling for immediate action to locate and safely return the young women abducted in Nigeria by the terrorist group Boko Haram.
Second.
Yes.
And you're seconding it. Any discussion? We've been asked by our League of Municipalities to do this and our legislators to do this, and I think every leader in America should be standing up for this action and hopefully get the young girls returned as soon as possible. Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, we have 4 discussion items. Mr. Ryan, first night.
Yes, we discussed first night a little bit at our last meeting. You asked me to get some information from our colleagues in South Orange, which I've done. I forwarded to you the list of the board members of the newly reconstituted first night group, indicating who was from Maplewood and who was from South Orange. Furthermore, Ms. Collum indicated to me that South Orange has budgeted $5,000 for this, and hopes that we would do the same. And thirdly, has indicated that it's her understanding that because this event would be taking place at Columbia High School in Maplewood, South Orange's police would be unavailable to assist. And so if we were to go ahead and do this, we'd be a solo operation in terms of police protection and support.
Ms. Leventhal?
Was there any consideration in the discussion that the costs of our police, the additional police power that we would have for the safety of our residents would be subtracted from the proposed contribution of $5,000?
Well, I mean, frankly, I would think that if we thought this was a good idea and that we wanted to participate and that $5,000 was the right level, and we felt that we had $5,000 worth of police expenses that we'd be incurring because of it, I'd propose that that would be our suggested contribution. I don't know what the right numbers are, and I haven't spoken to the chief of police or the public safety committee. Oh, but you have. Thank you.
Yes, actually, I did speak to Chief Semino, and he indicated that I asked him, based on past experience, et cetera, and he estimated that there would be 4 additional officers required, and the overtime amount would be $3,400. Dollars, not hours. What did I say? Okay, so that's his estimate for what the impact would be.
So what is your proposal, Mr. Ryan?
Well, I think that if, I remember when this event was active, and it was very nice and a lot of fun for a lot of different families, a nice family-oriented event. I was kind of sorry that it withered away, and I'd like to see it come back again. I would move that we propose to participate with South Orange in First Night 2014, and that we make a contribution totaling $5,000, but that perhaps the actual amount might be some in-kind contribution representing our policing costs for the event.
So it'd be $1,600 and then $3,400
Or whatever,
of actual...
yeah, whatever the numbers actually turn out to be. That's my suggestion.
Anyone second it?
Do you have a question first, or?
Yeah,
I don't know what the order protocol-wise.
Just
Well,
you
can ask a question because it hasn't been seconded.
Hasn't been seconded,
So you
so-
can ask a question.
I can ask a question. Are they saying that they need $10,000 to do this?
No.
Okay.
No, they're saying that their municipality is going to contribute $5,000 to the event. There's going to be private fundraising and sponsorships. There's some money left from the old defunct organization. They'd like us to join with them at the same level that they're participating.
And maybe I'm kind of doing the same math as Mrs. Larrier. If they're not contributing officers, but also they don't need $10,000, I don't know what the amount in terms of dollars they actually need. Could some of that $5,000 be used to pay for the overtime? I don't know how that, can you do intermunicipal things like that? I don't know how that works.
No
Not sure
idea.
I understand.
Can we bill the First Night organization for the overtime for our officers?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's effectively my question. And so therefore, if in fact they don't need $10,000, but need, I don't know, $7,000, I'm just making a number up, could we bill them for some portion of the overtime? Say half of $3,400, $1,700.
So my proposal was that our total contribution be $5,000. Whatever our costs were to pay for the extra police presence, plus some dollar amount that we would give, totaling $5,000. Now, if we don't need to give, if we give $5,000 and then bill the organization back, that's effectively the same thing. So if that's what you're proposing, I'd certainly be in favor of that.
Why would we do that, though? Because it just seems to me just a cash outlay that we don't have to make.
I'm just responding to what I thought the request was.
And I would hate for them to say, well, we're only going to bill back $1,700 when we supplied all of the entire 34. So I would second Mr. Ryan's motion that we contribute up to $5,000 and subtract from that total whatever our in-kind contribution is, be it with police or fire or whatever that turns out to be.
Yeah, it'd be Public Works time too, right? Close the
Public
streets
Works,
off and et cetera.
everything.
Do you think this?
We certainly have money in the police overtime. Hopefully we have money in police overtime that would cover the $3,400.
Right.
But then there's the $1,600, which we really, to be honest with you, don't have anywhere. We'd have to really put it in to the budget.
But we haven't adopted yet, so we could put it in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Ms. Leventhal.
So it's seconded?
It's moved and seconded. You can certainly speak on it or ask questions.
Right. So I would ask us to be very cautious and include all our costs. Public Works, if the fire department needs to be around, if they're still doing fireworks like has been done in the past, I don't know if that's part of the plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if we're owed money, then we should bill them.
I think Mr. Ryan's motion is consistent with that. It's a maximum of $5,000, and it incorporates any municipal expense that Maplewood would have.
As an in-kind contribution.
As an in-kind contribution.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
So if the fire department is needed and those officers are above the standard crew, then that would be included in there. If DPW is needed above the standard crew, then that would be included in there.
Look, if we have this conversation and the Township Committee agrees to go forward on this and we attend their next meeting and find out that this simply isn't going to work, then we'll rescind our participation.
Mr. Manning?
My concern is, does this year's contribution or support mean that we will be, or you will be supporting this every year?
Don't know that yet. We don't know if this is going to be successful or not.
Okay.
So we have to, I mean, this is they're trying to revive it. And,
I didn't mean to imply in my motion anything but this year.
Right, but just trying to think ahead, that's all.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
To Ms. Leventhal's point, what happens if the need exceeds $5,000?
I mean, if we're providing in-kind services above $5,000?
Yes.
Well, let me ask that question a different way, if I could. So we have a data point from the police department. We know what it costs the police department to participate in this. Can we find out what it costs the fire department and public works in the past to participate in this?
Sure, I mean, we can, yeah, sure.
I mean, it takes some of Chief Dinkelstadt's people to supervise the fireworks and do all that inspection stuff, and certainly the public works folks are worrying about closing off roads and that sort of thing. So let's just find out what it was in the past.
Okay.
So at this point, we have a motion on the floor to provide up to $5,000 in-kind services or cash, up to a total of $5,000.
That's correct.
You want to? Anybody else have anything to say on that?
And it was seconded as well, right?
It's been moved and seconded,
Right.
yes.
Being as we don't really have our costs at this time, I'm not willing, I think I'll vote no unless it's pulled. So I really, I just want to be sure that Maplewood's contribution of in-kind services is seen as contributing. So I would want to know the full cost to us, and if it comes out to $6,000, we may have to handle this differently.
Okay, it seems to me that if this motion passes, the number's $5,000. If we attend a meeting and find out that, either between the information that you have, Mr. Manning, or data that we have from these other folks, that they'd need a $9,000 contribution from us, just making up a number to illustrate the point, clearly I'd have to come back here to get approval, and we might withdraw. We might be willing to participate at $5,000, but not at 10.
But for planning purposes, we should kind of tie up all these loose ends pretty quickly, because it...
Certainly. I mean, and if the motion fails, the motion fails. But if it passes, clearly we'll come back very quickly with information from that meeting.
But they also know, they also need to know if we're in or not.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, okay, so
Okay.
5,000.
Anything else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Mr. Manning, 9 Essex Avenue?
Yes, I have an update that I received from Mr. Rowe that says he and one of our inspectors inspected the exterior of 9 Essex Road this morning, which was yesterday, the 19th. The inspection showed that the garbage and the plastic bags in front of the house has been removed. The debris in the plastic bags in the front and rear of the house are removed. There is still a large amount of debris in the rear yard. The contractor, they have a contractor there, is expected to provide a dumpster today, which was yesterday, for more debris cleanup. The immediate health hazard has been abated, but there's still many violations, hedges overgrown, chipping paint, and etc. There's a municipal court hearing scheduled for tonight, which was yesterday. I recommend that we postpone until the day in court on June 19th so that the work will be done, and also to keep the pressure on the homeowner to continue to get the work done. We brought this up because typically, if someone does not move to do this, Mr. Mittermeier's office has a cap of $400 that he could spend without the Township Committee's approval to get property cleaned up, and then we put a lien against the property. We thought this would go well over $400, and that's why we put it on. But as of yesterday, it has seemed to be abated. We'll keep our eye on it, and if we have to get back to you, we will.
And would it not be more efficient for us to give you a motion to lift the $400 so that if it does fail?
Yeah. And I'm not sure where the 400 came from, but we might also in the future think of like raising that a bit. Yes, it would be, yes.
Well, unfortunately, the statute lays out a process for doing this to then put the lien on the property.
We can't do it.
Yeah, you really can't do it. You really it requires Mr. Mittermeier to do a report. It requires some estimates, et cetera. So if we're going to lien the property, if we're not going to lien it, then it's different.
Well, we're going to lien it, right?
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right, Mr. Manning, you're still up South Mountain. Why?
Well,
I'd just like to mention, today I passed by the property. There was a worker there. There is the dumpster.
Okay.
So
hopefully they will abate it themselves without us having to intervene. South Mountain YMCA rents the Civic House from us for their office for their after-school program, and they also use the auditorium it's called Unity Auditorium, which if you're with your back to Valley Street, it's on the left-hand side of the building. It's a fairly large room. And they want to bring more programs to the community. However, they can't use that in the summer. It's stifling hot. They want to install air conditioning. One of those units, these new, I forget what they call them, but basically it's a in-the-wall unit above, and we have one right here actually in our CFO office, and a ductless unit. So they've asked us if we would consider entering into a 3-year, we have a year-by-year contract with them for the lease of the building. They would like to extend that to 3 years. They also wanted to have some sort of clause whereby if we asked them to leave and if they decided to leave, that there would be kind of a pro rata share paid back to them for this air conditioning. It's an $8,000 system, approximately $8,800. Was it
13,600?
13 because it was each straight. Okay, I apologize for that. I was looking at one unit is anyway. The bottom line is I've talked with Mr. Desiderio and we'd like to talk to them. We certainly feel that if we ask them to leave, that we do kind of have a commitment to paying for that over the 5-year period or the 3-year period. However, if they just choose to leave, that seems rather, kind of arbitrary on their part. So that would be part of the negotiations. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, but I think the room could benefit from air conditioning both immediately and in the long term. And we'd get more use and more programs for the community. So what we're just asking is if we could have a go-ahead to say yes. We still have to bring the plans in front of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I have that ready to go. If you agree that this is something that we should do. It's certainly reasonably priced.
So, just to be clear, we are agreeing to enter into an agreement with the Y to allow them to put air conditioning in there, knowing that if we terminate the lease before year 5, there's some expectation of payment, and there's a schedule here.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Basically what they want to do, and I've done this in other leases, basically they want to amortize their capital improvements over what they perceive as the useful life of it. Although interestingly, they've now cut back from a 5-year lease to a 3-year lease from what we received, and then Mr. Manning had some additional conversations. But basically, I think what Mr. Manning is asking is, are you agreeable to the concept, and we'll have to work out the details.
Any comments?
I'd like to be assured that each time from now until the end of the lease that they would want to make an improvement, that they would come to us.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
And that would remain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The only other improvement they were going to make, which we brought to you, was the fact that they're going to make some minor, not really major, changes to the kitchen, which is a little outdated.
Okay. Also, there's an exception clause from a group. And I can't find it right now. Unfortunately, I didn't mark it. It raised a concern for me that is there any mold that might be, is there any mold that could be in the room?
Currently, you mean?
Yeah. Something, yes, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Okay, so can we get a motion to authorize Mr. Manning and Mr. Desiderio to negotiate this agreement to allow the Y to put air conditioning into the Civic House under the terms that there, would be some payback if we terminate the lease early?
Yes, so moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? I'm sorry, call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, now we're talking about item number 4, expansion of parking on the west side of the former Women's Club, which is 60W. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. I see some people came late. If we've already had some public comment, if there's no objection from the Township Committee, we can allow people who might have not been here in the first public comment period to come up and say anything they want before we have our discussion. So is anyone who didn't get to the first public comment want to come up and just give us your name and your address? Right up here at the microphone.
Hello, good evening. My name is Carrie Glasser, and I live, myself and my husband Josh, the latecomer, sorry. We live at the corner of Woodland and Ridgewood Road. And I just wanted to ask a couple things. I apologize if you're into the process of things I should have already understood, but couple things. First, has there been town discussion about making a parking lot on the other side of the train station? Is that something that is there any, that big open area?
There have been lots of conversations about lots of different possible places for lots and decks over the years.
Is that a possible place?
There's a lot of different possible places.
Okay. I mean, it just, I know come to it late, but you can't help but notice there's all that open area. But I guess what I wanted to share with you all is that our town, our neighborhood is a special place. It feels small. It feels special. When we first drove through here, it looked like a place it looked like, and as we moved and became part of the community, feels like a small town where so many of us come here because it feels special and people know each other, and it's quiet when you get off the train, and it's, even when there were loud parties that I know were not there anymore, but in the Women's Center, it changed the nature of how it feels. It's hard to live in the area when all the traffic blocks your driveway. These are things we deal with, living where we do, and it seems like almost a threat of what our neighborhood feels like and what our town really is, to think of a commercial parking lot at the end of a residential street that we all care so much about and came here because of what it feels like and what the town is. And I know we can't look at it at the nature of what our street feels like. It's really what our town feels like. And I also wonder, when we're talking about a parking garage, has there been thought or a study or anybody asking about how that parking garage could, if it does come, or whatever comes there, could add to our community, could give us a place that we're proud of to visit and be in, and bring not only shoppers, I mean, certainly it would help our community and our town, but bring shoppers as well as our own families. I mean, I just was looking on Google this afternoon because I was thinking about this when I was running in the reservation this morning. And, you know, the greenery's so nice and everything, and I just looked on Google about parks on top of parking lots, you know, I mean, green spaces, or, you know, you've probably been to the High Line in New York, and I know we don't have that kind of budget, and we don't have that kind of resources, and we don't have that kind of time, but it feels special to walk in a place where there's lots of businesses, so it brings to the community, and there's also a place you could sit with your kids, or bring people to that go shop in the town. So I don't know what the process is, I don't know what the timing would be, but I certainly would like to be involved, or ask you all to be involved in thinking about whatever comes there, that there's a way that we could make it also a place to continue and not obliterate, but continue the feeling of our community, and that is why people would come to shop and live here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Josh White. I'm Carrie's husband, and again, we live on the corner of Ridgewood and Woodland.
Can I get the physical address, please?
562 Ridgewood Road.
Thank you.
And I think my greatest, an objection that I have is the tone with regards to the emphasis that this parking garage is placing in terms of cars as a means of transportation versus alternative means of what this parking garage is supposed to serve. I think one of the main strengths of this town and what's attracted many of us to here is the easy access to New York City. And it's a pleasure, particularly most of the people who live in our neighborhood chose it and pay a premium for living within walking distance of the train. You know, others, increasing number, are using bikes, and I think it's a wonderful thing that our town had chosen in the past to use a jitney service versus building a garage like Summit and Milburn, and I think that it's one of the things that builds a sense of community. It's those chance interactions with your neighbors, like we get on our main street, like we get at our pool, like we get in our beautiful parks, that makes this town a special place. Increasingly, people you know, have lives where they go from their house to their car to their jobs, and they don't know their neighbors. And I just think about as our society is increasingly going from one that's becoming less car dependent and more mass transit reliant, that our town has an opportunity to be a model, to use some of the resources that would go to building this and really creating a rideshare type program that could be the model for other small communities. You know, in California, where I just was this week, you can't build a road in Palo Alto without it also including a bike lane. And it really bothers me how our kids are just becoming accustomed to being driven distances of a half mile, of a mile, and being chauffeured to school. And you know, and how much we spend on buses for them. And there's so few who walk and take their buses, take their bikes to school. And I think that we should look at how much better we could do by promoting ride your bike to the train station and ride your bike to supporting local merchants whose interests we want to take into consideration. But if this is all about And listen, I'm a small business owner, and I really, you know, advocate for, you know, the entrepreneur and non-chain store owners. But is it the interest of 25 or so entrepreneurs whose interest that this is most intended to support? What about the other, you know, the tens of thousands of people in the community who, even if they are not using a bike share program themselves, would again be proud of being part of a town that advocates for such an approach to lifestyle? So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the Township Committee?
Hi. You and I are getting to see each other in a lot of places this last few weeks.
Apparently so.
So I'm Adriana Donat. I live at 19 Highland Place, and I've spoken to you before, and I know a lot of you. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. You've heard, and I know that you've seen emails from us. From me, my name shows up on the email, but really it's from all the different people in our neighborhood. I have this stack that keeps growing larger and larger of people who've signed on to the petition against this plan for the parking lot at the Women's Club. And as I understand it, the Women's Club is this plan is intrinsically attached to the post office redevelopment. And please correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'd love to have different information. But if that is the case, then from our perspective, then I think that the most reasonable thing going forward as the governor or the government of this township, we need to be leaning on the post office redevelopment crew. I think L&M developers, if I'm right, we need to be leaning on them to create parking to go along with the post office. Parking underground, I understand it's expensive, but that is a more appropriate place for it, and it seems to me that that is really where we should be putting our emphasis and our energies at this point, rather than trying to develop this lot in a different way. And I say this after much thought. I've spoken with Ms. Leventhal, who's been very kind and generous with her time. And after reviewing the plans, after talking to a lot of different people, I've talked to so many different people you would not know. So in any case, that's where I feel, and I think that most people in our area would agree, that we feel that the parking lot is more appropriately attached to that redevelopment site. Underground parking or whatever needs to be done to facilitate that, but it needs to be attached to that site, in our opinion. The Women's Club's lot, you've already heard most of what I have to say about it, but I would say that sitting here while I was listening to the earlier part of the meeting, I was looking on the walls, and we as Maplewoodians are celebrating wonderful things about town that make Maplewood special, that make people want to live here instead of Milburn or Short Hills or Summit, Union. If you look on the walls, you see the train station, you see all these buildings that we're celebrating here that we've had in our history for the longest time. We're celebrating Asher B. Durand, who painted, a lot of these beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous landscapes around here. And I feel like the specialness of Maplewood is that we are able to walk places. I don't have any figures behind this, but my feeling is that foot traffic that goes through the Maplewood Township, because people do have to walk more than they would say in Milburn, is probably just as advantageous to the businesses that are in town as any other, any parking space that you could create. And the plans that we have put forward for the Women's Club lot are going to create an extra 20 spaces for us. And that really, when you consider the cost of the spaces, both in money and in terms of the character and the fabric of our town, versus the cost of asking the developer for the post office redevelopment site to try to find some way to
put this into their plans, I think, at least for me, it's an easy choice. And I think for the people who wind up living above that building, it's an easy choice too, because personally, if I lived there, I'd prefer to have my car below and I'd pay more for it. I would certainly be happy to have that luxury of having my car close by and not having to look for parking. So for many reasons, it seems to me that that is the best plan. And I understand that it's very likely that you have already looked into this, but if you haven't, please do. And if you have, if you could tell us why this hasn't been pushed forward, we'd appreciate it. I know we have a lot of people here from the neighborhood, and we all would like to know. And I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but if there's anybody who's been spearheading this who could help us, we'd appreciate it. Is there anybody up there who can comment? Or
We're going to have a discussion after everyone's done, and we'll answer some of the questions then.
Okay. And then, so before I leave, I would like to ask one question, one favor of all of you, which is that summer is coming up. I know that the redevelopment of the post office is barreling forward, and you have a very pressing need to find parking. I would like a commitment that this will not be held to a vote without notifying the residents who live nearby, so we have an opportunity to come and speak at that meeting. It scares me that sometime in August, when everybody's gone on vacation, that this could come to a vote and we wouldn't know. I don't know if that's normal procedure. I know you've already notified us in regard to the planning board and things like that, but I would like a commitment that we would be notified before it comes to a vote. Is that something you can speak to later?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
My name is Morgan Hillis. I addressed you a few weeks ago on this issue. I live at 82 Woodland Road. I continue to oppose vehemently your plan to turn a residentially zoned piece of property, 60 Woodland Road, into a parking lot. I have 2 kids, one of whom will be attending Maplewood Middle School. The plan, when I've just started letting her walk to town by herself, that's one of the joys of living in this town, is it's so walkable, or used to be. She's not allowed to go on that section of Inwood. We don't have a picture this time, but if you can picture that intersection in your head where Inwood ends and then it becomes Woodland, right side of the street, across from the Trattoria. So she's not allowed to cross over to the side where Bank of America is because A, there's no crosswalk, B, there's a Bank of America parking lot. Now you're going to increase traffic and have people coming through from Highland exiting out Woodland Road while she's trying to go to school in the morning. Again, no crossing guard, no crosswalk there. We've had several near incidents when I'm there, just because you also allow parking all the way up to on the other side of Bank of America across from Woodland Road. So if you're standing there and you're my height or shorter and an SUV's parked there, nobody sees you. So you're creating a hazard for my kids, in addition to the fact that I really do expect you to abide by zoning laws. You're my representative too. I don't know what's going on with the Maplewood Village Alliance and the shop owners in town, but I shop there too, and I oppose Starbucks to protect them. So the fact that they would encourage you to ruin the character of my block, a place where my kids play, a place where I foresaw and in the past have had events for my kids' schools, preschools, the community, the PTA, is appalling to me. I saw this as an opportunity to have something maybe similar to the paper mill on a less commercial scale. And we're having a kids camp, a kids art camp there this summer, and you want to pave all the way around it? Kids go outside and picture what the trees used to look like. I mean, it's really appalling to me that this has happened already, the trees that have been cut down. The planning committee didn't even believe that those trees were diseased. No one believed it. You can have a landscaper say whatever they want to say, but when your own planning committee doesn't buy that those trees were sick, that it's just a coincidence that the Carey's trees are perfectly fine, but the ones that needed to be cut down for progress's sake happen to be sick. Your credibility's on the line here, and I expect you. If you can't meet the burden that a private owner should make, you should back off and find alternative means. And I agree with my neighbors who've said, and residents in town who've said, why are we subsidizing a private developer's parking needs? This private development is creating the problem, but we have to pay for it. And those of us next door have to pay for it twice, right? Out of our tax dollars and then out of the character of our community. So there are a lot of issues here. This is bad in many respects. And I think that hastily pushing this through is going to be a big mistake. It's going to create a lot of tension in our community between residents, people who own shops. You know, you're hurting us in many ways. So I urge you to take a step back here. And also, in terms of the timing, I read on Maplewood Online that this was happening today. Then I called your clerk who said, oh, we're not Maplewood Online. Why should the Maplewood Village Alliance know before we know that this is happening and being discussed? You know, we have softball games, school events right now, everybody's cramming everything in. So there are a lot of people interested in this who need more notice than, you know, Friday to Tuesday to get here. Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Katie Quillen. I live at 15 Highland Place. I'm in the house next to the parking lot on the Highland Place side. I'm in complete agreement with everything that has been said this evening by my neighbors on this topic. So I apologize. I don't know if anything I'm going to say is going to add anything new or just be repetitive, but I feel this strong need to speak so I know when I leave this evening to go home that I've done my part. And I would be very remiss to not have taken the opportunity you've provided us to speak about this tonight. Just a few thoughts that I have, and as you said, you'll address them later, not at this point, but I'm thinking about where you live, and I don't know if any of you live in this neighborhood, but I'd like you, if you don't, I'd like you to think about your own neighborhood and where you live, and if you would like to see this project literally in your backyard or literally next door to you. We live next door to this parking lot. We have 2 young children, as some of my neighbors have said this evening. We take great pride and enjoyment in walking downtown with our young children, you know, weekday evenings, but mostly on the weekends. And the draw of this community for many people is that it is small and it is quaint and it is called Maplewood Village. It's not downtown Milburn, Montclair. It's not large and sprawling. And I feel like we're trying to be something that we're not, that we're not intended to be, we're not designed to be. Even if it's, you know, in the future plans and not in this particular current plan, the idea of larger parking areas and potential parking decks does not fit with what Maplewood is. And I think that's something that really needs to be considered. It might sound nice from the progress point of view, from the business point of view, but I need you to think about this literally happening next door to where you live, and it might create a very different sort of feeling for you. It's an ill-conceived plan. Some of my neighbors have already spoken tonight about the fact that, or the potential that if this is connected to the post office redevelopment plan, this is an ill-conceived way of getting enough parking for that plan. It's by default a poor plan if it doesn't include on-site the parking to fit the needs of that particular plan. The current Women's Club parking lot that has been made public is never full. I see it. I live right next door to it, so I know that for a fact. Another thing I'm concerned about is the environmental impact. Maplewood touts itself as a green town, and I think it wants, you know, surrounding towns to see it that way, and I think it wants to be at the forefront and sort of a leader with this idea of being a green town, and this just doesn't fit with that either. So there are environmental concerns, there are safety concerns for pedestrians, and I just think it feels very rushed, And I would strongly urge you to take a step back and really consider alternate plans and options that we have available to us. It just doesn't fit with what we are as Maplewood. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Okay. We're now at discussion item number 4. There will be another public comment period after this discussion and after our consent agenda vote. So if you'd like to say anything after we have our conversation, then you're free to do that. A couple of things I want to mention as we start this. The proposal that we have before us is to do 3 things, essentially. One is to repave the existing parking lot on the east side of the Women's Club that exists there now. It's roughly 53 spots. In doing that, there's also a proposal to merge the 2 parking lots, the Highland parking lot and the Women's Club parking lot, by creating getting rid of that fence, getting rid of those trees, and creating a loop there. So that's the one aspect of it. The second is to change the entrance to the Women's Club off of Inwood there to make a one-way going in and a one-way coming out, and actually shrink the driveway by creating 2 driveways with a grass strip in the middle, which actually will increase pedestrian safety because you're not crossing 2 lanes at any given time. Then the third, which is an option, is option 1, which is to include some parking on the east side of the Women's Club building. Just a few comments. West side, I'm sorry, west side. Yes, thank you. A few comments about some of the things in play here. First, the township went to the planning board on April 8th and presented a proposal that actually had the parking lot on the west side, the proposed parking lot on the west side, option 1, go fairly close to the sidewalk, and was going to create 29 parking spaces there. And the planning board looked at that plan and found that the plan is consistent with the master plan, but made some recommendations. One is that the parking area should extend no further than the north facade of the building on the west side to maintain the prevailing front yard setback of the immediate neighborhood and preserve trees and other greenery in the front yard of the property. 2, they suggested that we use permeable materials. 3, that we give consideration to the reconfiguring of the layout and the front walk and the entrance driveways to ensure viability of the oak tree. And 4, that the final selection of interior light fixtures should respect the historic nature and character of the building. Subsequent to that, and to the comments many of you made at the planning board, we did go back and revise the plans and did set the parking lot back from the front of the building, or from the front of the property, to no further than the front of the building, as recommended by the planning board. We've reduced the number of parking spaces from 29 to 20, so we've reduced it by 1/3. And then we put that out as soon as we got back the information from our architects. We put that on the website. Someone mentioned about whether we informed anyone of this meeting, and at the last meeting, Ms. Carey asked if this matter was going to go before the planning board, and I said it would not, that it would be this body, the Township Committee, that would make a decision, and that any revision to the plan will incorporate the planning board's recommendation, and the decision to move ahead or not will be made by the Township Committee, And I said the decision to go out to rebid will probably be made at the next meeting on May 20th. Ms. Carey asked, will the plans be available? And I stated, yes, they will be on the township website. So we did put them on the township website as soon as they became available to us. And we are talking about this, as we said, at the May 20th meeting. On May 9th, on yesterday, we received a letter from the Village Alliance telling us that at their meeting on May 14th, they passed a motion that says that the Village Alliance supports the revised parking plan for 60 Woodland Road, which increases the number of spaces in the current municipal lot number 3 and connects lot number 3 to the Highland Place municipal lot with the following caveats. The plan needs more landscape screening at the Woodland Road side directly in front of the parking. 2, the grade should be lowered to further screen parked cars from the street view. And 3, they recommend using black lighting fixtures in keeping with the existing street lamps that would shield neighbors from the lighting. So we now have a revised plan. The Village Alliance is suggesting screening and also maybe a change to the nature of the lot, as opposed to having it cars parked on an incline. To excavate that area and have cars even lower so people on Woodland would not be able to see those cars. Someone asked about the need. We did have a parking study back in May of 2012. And it did talk about the need for additional parking in Maplewood Village. It did also suggest that we merge lot number 7 with the Women's Club, and lot number 7 is the Highland lot, and merge the 2 parking lots for safe access and efficient circulation. So we are following our plan, and if those of you who were around when we bought the Women's Club property, we did it for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to preserve the building to be able to use it for community use, and we're doing that now. And 2, we wanted to create more parking for downtown. And we immediately created 53 spots that were there. Some of those are 2-hour spots, some of those are reserved for train commuters, and some of those are merchant parking. And we had talked about the merging of the 2 lots at that time, and we also talked about the addition of parking on the west side. My own view is that I am in favor of the plan. I would like to go back to the engineer and put some of the recommendations from the Village Alliance in effect to see if we could lower the grade to get the cars even lower. And get more screening in the front with some planting. I would like to see the plan reduced a little bit more. I'd like to set it back from the front of the building just a little bit more, even though the planning board suggested that it could be up to the side of the building. I'd like to see it go back just a little bit more, maybe eliminate 4 spaces or so. We need to, we're under a lot of this is tied to all the development in the town, not just to the development of the post office. I mean, the post office development is not going to happen for 2 years, but the traffic and the parking problem is current, and it is a problem. Our merchants are telling us it's a problem. Our residents are telling us it's a problem. We're trying to promote the stabilization of businesses down there, and the purpose of buying that lot, that property, that 1 acre, was to increase parking and to preserve the building, and that's what we're doing. When we declared that building a historic site, we did not declare the site a historic site. And to argue that you'd walk out of the building into asphalt, well, you'd do that on the east side anyway. And my guess is that at some point, the asphalt wasn't on the east side of that building, but it was put there. So, you know, in my opinion, the need for parking is great, and we're going, if we move forward with it, we'll do it in a way that shields the parking as much as possible, and that's where I am on this. Yes.
I would also like to address the issue that it was a local, we did designate it a local site. We worked with the Historic Preservation Commission to do that. I would also remind you that it was very clear that having designated did not impede us from doing what we felt was necessary. And as Mayor DeLuca indicated, when we purchased the building, we did have that in the forefront of our mind. That being said, though, I would certainly hope that we would welcome the input of the commission in the further screening, in choosing light fixtures that would better or be better appropriate for the building, not to impede what we're going to do or what is necessary for the township, but certainly to take their advice or their input.
Brian?
I had a couple of points I wanted to make in response to some comments were made by folks before I say what I'm in favor of and not in favor of. This proposal, this discussion has always been taking an existing building that has an existing parking lot and adding some spaces to it. So to the gentleman that referred to this as this parking garage, nobody's talking about building a parking garage. Nobody's talking about building a parking deck. This particular proposal is adding a couple of spaces to an existing lot. Now, I frankly agree with the folks that thought that the initial plan that came out of the engineering department that was put before the planning board was too overscaled. And I agree with the folks who felt that it was had an adverse effect on the neighborhood, had an adverse effect on safety. I don't think that if we were to add 10 more spots to the back or 15 more spots to the back, that it would have the same negative effect. I would also like to make a couple more points. There's not a single thing in Maplewood Village that has enough parking. Not a single thing. In fact, our zoning code is written such that you're not required to have on-site parking. Nobody can. There's just not enough room for on-site parking. Everybody has to find a place to park and share all the big parking lots that we have. There has been conversation in this town and before this township committee for as long as I can remember about parking. 6 months ago when we were talking about the post office lot, we had people standing up here and saying that we had a great big problem with parking in Maplewood Village, and darn you, township committee, you haven't done a thing about it in 25 years. And even if you just listen to the folks who spoke tonight, some people said we don't need any more parking. One gentleman said we actually need less parking and we should have things in place that encourage bicycling and walking and ride sharing, and we shouldn't add more parking. Other people asked about parking in other places that might be more appropriate. I think what it comes down to is you have to decide if you agree with the proposition and you agree with the study and you agree with the feedback that you've been getting that we need more parking. If you don't agree with that, then you're completely opposed to any change at all. If you do agree with the notion that there needs to be more parking, then it changes to a question of where it's going to be, where it should be, and how it should be done. Okay, so I agree with the notion, and it's taken me a while to come to this, I agree with the notion that there needs to be more parking in the village. For all of friends of mine who say that there's never a problem, I can always find a place to park, there is a problem. Our business owners say it, shoppers say it, and I think that we need to do. We need to add more parking to the village in more than just one place, in a way that's sensitive to the neighborhood, in a way that's sensitive to the community. And in response to one of the latter speakers, I live in the neighborhood. I live a couple blocks away. So I'm very familiar with the ambiance of the area and the neighborhood. Okay. So I think, and another point that was raised, folks said that they thought that they believe that we're wrong to not follow our zoning. And we have some legal report that says that it doesn't apply to us, and I don't question that, but I do think that this Township Committee found value in the public input that we got from the Planning Board. I do think that I think if we amended the zoning ordinance to allow for this kind of use, that ordinance would pass. I think that if we made an application to the Board of Adjustment for a zoning variance and asked the Board of Adjustment to weigh the positives and negatives, I believe that we'd get that variance. That said, I understand and appreciate the problems that the neighbors have with a plan that's changed on a number of occasions. And what I would suggest that we do, frankly, is that I'd be very much in favor of repaving the existing lot. It clearly needs to be done. I'm very much in favor of connecting the two lots and reconfiguring the parking. I'm no longer at the moment in favor of adding a couple of parking spots on the uphill side of the building for a couple different reasons. I think that as we reduce the number of spaces on the side of the building to address the concerns of the Planning Board and the neighbors and the Village Alliance regarding greenery, we begin to hit a point of diminishing returns. Right? So I would suggest that a couple things. I would withdraw including parking on the uphill side of the building. I would say that our next step should be another review before the Planning Board, and I don't think there's any support on the Township Committee for this, but I'd change the zoning, frankly, to just make it clear that these are what the rules are, and we believe that those are the right rules. I do think that we need more parking in the village, and every time we talk about, we're going to have a conversation about should there be a parking deck across the street from the proposed new site of the post office? Should there be extra parking on other lots in the village? This is not the end of a conversation about parking, but perhaps there's a better place than 10 or 15 spots on the side of the building uphill from there. So that's where I'm at.
So I just was asking Mr. Ryan for a clarification. Could you tell me on the west side of the building, you're in favor of?
I'm calling. I keep screwing up east and west, so I'm calling it uphill and downhill. I would repave the lot. I would connect the two lots, but I wouldn't put parking on the side of the building where it isn't now. Or if I did, I wouldn't put more than a couple, 3 spaces there.
Okay, all right. I think it was the terminology that got.
Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to make a few comments, and first to let you know that I totally understand what it is like to live in a busy area. When I moved here 25 years ago, Underhill Field was a grass field. The track was there. There were 2 lights on the field. It's changed considerably now, being a turf field. There are games on Friday night until 10 o'clock. There's parking, sometimes even on our driveways, unfortunately. But as hard as that is on our neighborhood, there's also the fact that our kids are playing more sports, more kids are able to play, we're able to host games, that there's an improvement in that quality of that segment of life in Maplewood. And knowing that the parallel for me is knowing that the merchants and residents constantly telling us that there is not adequate parking is something that I was like Mr. Ryan in the beginning. It was like, wait, I always get parking there in the village. You know, yes, well, yet it's very hard to get the parking at certain hours. And our parking study a couple of years ago laid that out. They actually counted spaces in different parking lots, etc. So I definitely see the need. I think we have to be, I'd like to see us move forward with some parking. I like the idea that the mayor brought up to make it a slightly smaller lot. We are losing spaces along the location where the two lots will join. So it's almost, you know, it's like we're only going actually a few above what is there now, literally a few. The parking lot is being used more. I park there all the time, literally all the time. It's not full at night. It's more full during the day. So that people, I think, are becoming familiar with it being there. And it's not far from the stores. So as people get used to it, and I do think the Village Alliance, it's just a little bit of an aside, but I think the Village Alliance should do more to let people know that that lot is there. I think we have to be careful in moving forward, though, in terms of safety and in terms of drainage. There was a drainage plan, and it met all the codes, the state codes, engineering codes, etc. But the planning board has asked us to be even more careful. In terms of safety, that is something that needs to be, and I've heard you, in terms of our kids, it needs to be built into the plan, like the traffic into the parking lot and the traffic exiting the parking lot. There are other concerns that have been mentioned to me, and I think there are ways to work with that. We have adjusted to the planning board's suggestions, and what it really comes down to for me is that, this is strange, but I came across in the Grassmere Historic Room a document, a planning document, that the planning board in 1947 asked for a study on parking in the village, and 500 spaces were needed. Now, we're talking almost 70 years ago, and we still have the same issue. And, you know, it really, in terms of what I hear about when we talk to the Township Committee or even here at our meetings, after taxes, parking in the village is the second biggest thing that I hear about. I am the environmental leader on our governing body, and don't come easy to suggesting that any trees should be taken down, that any green space, big or small, should be used for something else. And I do remember that song about paving over the parking lot. It's not easy to support this, but I feel strongly that in supporting it, I will be very careful in terms of safety, both in drainage and in our kids' safety. So that's where I'm at.
Riley, you have anything?
Just a quick, if we do go forward with this, I would want to instruct Chief Semino to take a fresh look at the need for crossing guards, or I don't know if it's also Mr. Malavasi, in terms of maybe a crosswalk. I'm not sure whose jurisdiction that falls under, but just to take a fresh look at that area, just to, if a change is merited, then we do that.
Let me see if I can, what I would suggest is that we get a motion to instruct the engineer to work with the Planning and Engineering Committee to reduce the proposed west side parking so that the parking on the west side is no further than the parking on the east side, which would eliminate about 4 more spaces and move the parking back from Woodland. That will still create 20 new spaces because there's 4 spaces that would be created the Highland lot by the merging of the 2 lots. So those are 20 net spaces, Ms. Leventhal. I also would ask the Planning and Engineering Committee to discuss the change in the intersection, the entrance on Inwood. I believe there's a proposed crosswalk there, and I think we need to have the chief weigh in on some of the safety concerns there. And also the concern that there has been expressed about the perceived cut through from Highland to Woodland, that I would want the Planning and Engineering Committee to work with Mr. Malavasi to see if there's any kind of traffic calming that can be put somewhere as far as a speed hump or something. It is unlikely because if you enter the sort of northbound lane on Highland and go towards the Women's Club, you come to roughly the center of the Women's Club. So it's not a cut through. You have to make a right there and then a left to get out onto to Woodland. So, but I think those things, some of those concerns were raised tonight. We're not talking about a parking deck or parking structure. So what I would ask is see if there's a motion and see if we got support to move forward with another revision of the plan to reduce the parking some more. I also would want to go back to the Village Alliance recommendations about lowering the grade, reducing the number of spots and lowering the grade so that it's sunk further down so there's less visibility from Woodland, and also getting the lighting fixtures consistent with the look of what's in the village. Does anybody have anybody willing to make a motion to that regard?
And what would be so then you're proposing that the next step be to refer to the Planning and Engineering Committee, and where do you
There's
envision?
a step before that the motion, well, I'll make the motion.
Right, okay.
That we move forward with the plan to put parking on the west side, and that we'd make the other changes as proposed in the plan, but that we refer back to the Planning and Engineering Committee and the engineer our desire to see less parking on the west side, so that it is consistent with the east side as far as closeness to Woodland Road, and that we look at traffic calming issues, and we also look at the intersection for safety. We're creating this new entrance and exit to look at that for some safety issues. But that essentially the vote would be to go forward with it, and that we would end up creating 20 parking spaces. Net.
Just reconfigured.
Yes.
Second.
I don't see the net. All right.
At the time.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I move that your motion be amended to remove adding any parking on the uphill or west side of the building.
Protocol-wise, you
No,
need
he
to
can-
vote
he
on
can-
first.
He can move an amendment.
The amendment needs a
Has to
second.
be seconded.
Yeah.
Doesn't that go against what your motion is?
No, the proposal has a bunch of different things. It has repaving the lot, which I'm in favor of. It has connecting the 2 lots, which I'm in favor of. It has worrying about vegetation and greenery and lighting, which I'm in favor of.
Absolutely.
So if I could break the motion into pieces, I'd vote yes on some of them and no on one piece.
Question. Is the net effect of your amendment that we would be adding roughly 16 spaces instead of 20?
No.
No, yours is 20.
His amendment is 0.
Right.
Actually, it'd be
Well,
four
or
spaces.
6, depending.
It's a reduction of 4.
No, it's a
2 to
reduction of
4.
16. His amendment is to eliminate the parking on the west side of the women's club. The uphill side.
Looking at the club on the right.
So the parking that's there now?
No.
No.
I'm confused.
The uphill side.
Yeah,
The place where there's no parking right now.
Yeah.
My proposal is that we remove adding parking there from Mr. DeLuca's motion.
Let me be clear. I made a motion to move forward with putting parking on the west side.
Right.
Mr. Ryan is making an amendment, a motion to amend my motion to eliminate the parking on the west side.
Okay.
So, how would you even vote for something like?
Is it 2 votes? I'm sorry.
No,
just
it
one
has to be a second.
Okay, I mean, if it is seconded, is it 2 votes?
And there has to be a vote whether to amend it or not.
Okay.
So
Do you
you
have
have
to
to
pass-
vote
do you
on
have-
the motion as amended.
Why don't we let our lawyer tell us?
Is there a second
There's no
to
second.
Mr. Ryan's motion?
There's no second as of the moment.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? The motion, Mayor DeLuca's original motion, that does not, just for clarification, that does not make this a done deal.
Absolutely not.
It just means we're going back, we're looking at some revisions, and still, Mr. Ryan could still wind up with the 0 spaces on the west side if we can't make that work.
That is correct.
Okay, so,
But I just want to be totally open here. My motion is that we are moving in favor of doing this parking on the west side,
but it,
with the understanding that it has to go back and be tweaked more and see if it can work. And what I'm suggesting is reducing it by at least 4 spaces and putting more buffering in and reducing the grade there so that the cars are parked lower and not up on a hill so that the people on Woodland would be able to see it.
to see if it will work. And if it doesn't work...
Well, it has to come back here to go
right,
out for a bid.
I'm sorry.
Right. So it has to come back to go out for a bid. After it gets tweaked by the Planning and Engineering Committee, it comes back here to go out for a bid.
So the first vote is on Mr. Ryan's amendment?
No.
No, it died without, for lack of
No
second.
second.
It has,
I mean, if there's a second.
Right. Essentially, if there's a second and there's a vote on Mr. Ryan's amendment, it's to eliminate the parking on the west side.
I got it.
all right. Is there a second to Mr. Ryan's motion? Seeing none, Mr. Ryan,
Right.
there is no...
Let's
motion. So
call
this-
the roll on the main motion.
Don't we have to second that?
Please.
I seconded
Mr.
it.
Brownlee seconded.
Mr. Brownlee seconded.
You do.
Can we just, as a point of clarification, our expectation is that the plan will come back to this body and will be referred again to the Village Alliance?
No.
No, okay.
All that would be dealt with before it comes back to this
Okay.
body.
So it will come back here, and then we will determine whether
Whether
it
to go out
moves
for a
forward.
bid. That's what we're deciding, whether to go out for a bid.
Well, that's
Not
not what we're
now.
deciding
Not now.
Not now,
That's the
right.
ultimate decision, is whether to go out for a bid. And that means we're authorizing the project. Right now, we're expressing support for the project, subject to some further revisions.
Support that could be withdrawn if...
Absolutely,
if we don't-
until the
okay.
final vote. You can always change your mind.
All right, great.
Call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier,
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
No.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yes.
Passes 4-1.
Okay. We are now at the consent agenda, and I'd like to pull number 8714.
As would I.
That's what you wanted to do?
I read this.
Pull for separate vote?
For a separate
Yes.
vote. For a separate vote. Pull out. So let's get a consent agenda, let's get a motion on the consent agenda,
Mayor,
pulling out 8714.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of the consent agenda items 2 through 6. But I'll be abstaining on 6. Since I wasn't
Well,
there.
maybe somebody else should make the motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody else make the motion, please. Mr. Ryan has to abstain on 6.
I move for the adoption of the consent agenda minus Resolution 87-14.
And I think you are the only other person here.
Second.
Okay. Because you were not here on that
was
meeting.
not
So
It's only 3.
please call, they're going to abstain on a certain one, but please
All
call
right.
the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes, with the exception of what I have to abstain on.
Can she vote?
Which are the minutes?
Yes, the minutes of 6.
Which are the minutes?
Of the
Okay.
closed minutes of the 17th.
Correct. And
Ms.
you-
Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes, except I abstain on item 6.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, now we have Resolution 8714. This is a resolution authorizing the consumption of alcoholic beverages at 60 Woodland Road. Mr. Manning, do you want to speak on this?
Yes, we have a wedding and we have other events that are going to be coming up, and we have, I don't know, what is it, a resolution or ordinance? And we have an ordinance that allows it in certain public buildings under certain circumstances. We'd like this resolution passed so that until we amend the ordinance, we can allow for alcoholic beverages to be consumed at 60 Woodland Avenue.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of...
Road, I'm sorry, 60 Woodland Road. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of Resolution 8714.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Brownlee.
Just as a point of principle, again, my challenge with this is just in the wording, and I realize I'm being a stickler with this. It says enhance the use and benefit. If you want to say increase the expected revenue, then I'm fine with it, but I just don't feel that saying
Why
consuming
don't we
alcohol...
cut that resolution, why don't we cut that whereas out? Just cut it out all. There's no
Enhance the
reason to
use and
have-
benefit?
No, just cut it out. There's no reason to say why it's good.
Okay, yeah, I just...
Say it.
Yeah, that's
I
my...
move the resolution with that whereas removed.
And you second that, Ms. Leventhal?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? This would allow alcohol to be served at 60 Woodland Road.
This is until we're able to,
This is through December 31st, 2014.
just for reminder, the ordinance that we have for public buildings, that's coming to us on a case-by-case basis?
Yes.
The use.
For Bergdorf and for...
The library.
1978 Springfield Avenue,
And
the library.
Library and
That's
the
it.
That's it.
community, not
That's
the
it. No.
Art.
No, not that.
So once this is, so up until December 31st, is this still having to come to us on a case-by-case basis?
Yes. They will always have to come to you on a case-by-case basis.
I think, may I?
No.
I think that the case-by-case rental, it goes to Mr. Manning. The case-by-case building comes to us as a resolution. Am I correct, Mr. Desiderio?
Business administrator. Mr. Manning just pointed out, it's the business administrator. The answer is yes.
Until
So
you,
I'm
right.
sorry.
Until you change the ordinance, which we can work on doing, we just need to have some way we can do it instantly, because we're starting to line things up. Pretty soon we'll have them, they're in advance, you'll have time to consider it and do it at each meeting if you so choose.
My question is, why does it have to be more instant than the library or any other building?
It's not allowed right now.
What?
It's not allowed right now. It's simply not on the list.
Right. It's not allowed, and also events are coming up because it's just coming online.
We had a resolution that expired on December 31st, 2013,
For the
for the Women's Club.
For the Women's Club.
So it's not allowed, it's not on the ordinance, and we want to pass the resolution so that we're covered until we get the ordinance changed.
And once the ordinance is changed, they'll have to come to us on a case-by-case basis?
No.
No.
They
It's
never
whatever the
come-
ordinance says.
They never come to us.
Anymore, no?
They don't come to the Township Committee
No.
for approval.
Okay. This is what it says now. Notwithstanding anything contained herein to the contrary, the Township of Maplewood may, by resolution of the Maplewood Township Committee, as part of an approved use of the Bergdorf Cultural Center, 1978 Springfield Avenue, Maplewood Memorial Library, Baker Street, permit the distribution and consumption of alcoholic beverage incidental Beverage Commission, so.
It doesn't come
So the answer is, you do need to know when this is going to happen. This resolution gives the power to Mr. Manning with regard to this particular property through December 31st, 2000.
Mr. Manning can let us know.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Now, if you want to change the ordinance, that's a discussion we can
But
have.
when 1978 has a art opening and they have a bottle of wine there, it doesn't come before the Township Committee to
No.
give them approval to put a bottle of wine out for an art opening.
Right.
Is that only, I'm sorry, just because you mentioned that, I wouldn't have asked otherwise. Is that, you're saying it's just a bottle of wine as if it's more of a matter of enforcement? Is it just the fact that it's not required, period? I'm only questioning the wording, the way you said it, that's all.
No, it's just that it would be impossible for us, first of all.
Yeah, we don't want to every single one. I don't want to micromanage. Yeah, exactly.
So we set the policy that there can be liquor, and they're supposed to notify when people use their facilities and want to use alcohol, have alcohol there, they need to notify the town.
Yeah.
That should be through Mr. Manning's office.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the standard ordinance already.
And this is just adding this building to that list, effectively, well, through the 31st.
Right.
So, that's fine. Again, just given the fact that we excluded the why, it's good, I'm okay with it, just so you know.
Whereas.
Enhance the use and
Oh, the
benefit.
The whereas.
Since we're striking
I
that
thought you meant
whereas.
the why.
I thought he said
Yeah,
exclude
no,
the
no,
wine.
no, no,
I
no,
am
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Beer's
Enhance
fine,
the
but
use and
wine
benefit.
is right.
Did Mr. Ryan moved it and Ms. Leventhal seconded it, I believe?
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
No.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, we're at the second public comment period. If there's anyone who would like to address the Township Committee, please come on up and give us your name and address.
Hello. Jane Conrad, 35 Roosevelt Road. Just want to apologize for not being here earlier. For the first comment period, we had two separate orchestra concerts that our children were appearing in, so that just got over with. And I'm here just to express my opposition to creating parking on the west side of the Women's Center. And there are really sort of two parts to my opposition. And one of them is that I know that it's sort of an article of faith that there is not sufficient parking in the village, but honestly, when I tried just in my small way to investigate this, by going at the times that were said to be the peak periods when parking was needed, at 1 o'clock weekdays, and then in the evenings, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I always found at least between 20 and 25 places in the Women's Center's parking lot open. And in addition, another 30 to 50, I mean, my husband and I just went and took pictures of the available spaces, and we started a thread on Maplewood Online and so on. And one suggestion I have is maybe some better signage that would remind people that in the evenings the commuter spaces are open. Because I also would see lots of bad behavior, Thursday and Friday evenings, people double parking around Village Coffee and so on. But if they would just walk 50 feet, if they could park just 50 feet away from that on the other side of the train tracks. So, I feel like at least there should be, some real investigation. I mean, I know there was this study a few years ago, and I believe its conclusion was that there was not, a deficit of parking, or there was, but then you acquired the Women's Center, which opened up 50 spaces. And, so I would just submit that it's a question whether or not there really is this deficit. And also, even if you were to add, 15 to 20 spaces someplace, that's not going to stop people from, double parking and doing all that sort of stuff. And so, maybe you ought to inform, levy fines or whatever, try to take care of it that way. And then, so you're looking at adding 20 or maybe fewer spaces. And so my opposition comes, in addition to, the loss of the aesthetic effect there, is just that it's an expensive choice, I think, to try to put spaces there, because you have a steep hillside, you have a lot of water coming down that hillside, and those trees and grass, they're doing a lot for us. And it's a hard thing, I think. I mean, it's always sort of seemed to me, no disrespect intended to the engineers present, but that engineers often underestimate what natural systems are doing for us. And it's a risk that you're taking. What if, you're going to have a retaining wall. Instead of trees and grass, you're going to have a retaining wall, and you're going to have a storm drain treatment system. Both of those are expensive things that will have to be maintained and in perpetuity. So that's an initial cost, and then you'll have to clean out the filter system or whatever. If you're really going to treat the water that comes off the parking lot there. And then what if it's not sufficient to handle that? At the bottom of the hill, you have a historic building. And is that putting the historic building at risk, to surround it with pavement in that way? I also think it's a cost in the sense that it makes that building less attractive to various potential uses. In that, as someone pointed out at a previous meeting, if you're sitting in there and look out the windows and see yourself surrounded by cars, that's not as nice as, having an area, a grassy area that could be used for receptions or children's camp, whatever. So I see a lot of costs and the risk of having the building there at the foot of the hill. And then I question, what are you getting for it? You should be really sure that, you desperately need those spaces there in that particular location. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Charles Carey, 70 Woodland Road. I'm the residence right next door. Thank you for, I detected a little bit of reasonableness in the council. Thank you for that. But I think this plan, I missed the earlier comment, appreciative of them all. I think this plan, guided, leading, it is to pick up financially irresponsible, and we think it's illegal. My attorney letter is in your possession now. My intent here tonight is to let you know that if there's not modifications for this amendment, I and my neighbors will fully avail ourselves legal rights and remedies and challenges that we have to this plan. A different tack. I stood before the planning board weeks ago and said, I'm a reasonable person, resident of this town for 20 plus years, and I love this town. But I and my neighbors are not going to sit idly by and watch precious financial resources, public funds, being utilized, something that is maybe or maybe not, and we think not, necessary, or adding temporary parking spaces for a problem that is self-caused. Myopic, and I think it's very arrogant. Not in keeping with this great town's way of life. Parking lot there, forget about defending my castle and my property rights. A parking lot there will irreparably damage and scar a beautiful neighborhood and this town. I think this is beyond this council and this neighborhood. It's a big issue for this council. I want you to really consider why, the premise behind our sending a letter from an attorney this morning. It wasn't really a choice. We felt like we had to do it. I just want to reiterate, if this goes through, as intended, will be challenged. Very end. The town has things to do. I would beg you to be reasonable. The deal here to be made somewhere. Bulldozing that part of the property to create 20 additional parking spaces beyond the pale. We've jumped the shark, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't make sense. Let's find an alternative. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a quick question.
Name,
When I was
name
up
and
here,
address again.
Excuse me?
Name and address again.
Oh, sorry. Adriana Donat, 19 Highland Place. One quick question. Before this is voted on, because I know it's going back to the engineer and then it's going to come back, can you commit to us that you will let us know before this is voted on? I want to make sure that we are here and that we can be represented. I'm worried that this will wind up coming through here when there's nobody here to represent us. So can you please commit to us that we'll be notified?
We have the list of 200 feet, right?
Have the list? Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll do 200 feet, because that's
200 feet?
required. 200 feet is required.
Okay.
Well, it's not required for this.
Well, it's not required, but it was something that we did with the the planning board. It's a standard notification.
But it's not, I'm sorry, but it's
Not
not gonna-
required.
It's not going to go out certified mail. It's
No,
gonna go
not
out-
regular
go out
mail.
Regular mail.
We'll go out regular mail, but we'll have time to make it to the meeting. It won't be same day or anything.
Yes, now the meeting will not be here. The meeting will be at the Police and Court Building on Springfield Avenue.
And is that going forward, they're always going to be at the police?
June, July, and August, and September.
It's just something we do every year because of the air conditioning in the summer.
You'll
This
thank
is not
us-
air
you'll thank
conditioning,
us
so
on
it'll
the
be much
holidays.
cooler there for you.
Thank you.
So we will commit to do a letter through U.S. mail, 200 feet, the residents of 200 feet.
Okay. And the plans, will they be made available when they've been tweaked?
On the website.
On the website? Will we be aware that they're on the website? I know we have been checking the website. We had someone who was alert enough to find them. But
We can send out a notification, right?
You should check periodically.
Yeah, but we can send out a notification. We have
We could have
a blast, one of those, whatever we call it.
Just as a separate,
News
just-
flash.
one thing they're mentioning as a separate matter, and I'm not sure whether that's clear in what they're saying. On the website, there is the opportunity to sign up for alerts.
Oh,
And you
okay.
can sign up for alerts of different kinds. So if you make sure that you're signed up for the alerts, it's on the upper right-hand corner of the website, then you'll get alerts, any alerts that come out.
Okay.
And so that's what they're referring to. So if you're not signed up for the alerts, obviously you won't get them.
Okay, so I need to go and sign up. and
Yes,
it
you can
won't let
always
me-
check the website just on your own, just check the website. But if you want to be, just when it comes out, you automatically get it. Then if you sign up, then you will get it automatically.
And that would be for breaking news.
Breaking news.
Yeah, there are
Thank
different categories you can sign up for, so he's telling you which category specifically.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, we'll close the second public hearing for public comment, and we are now at administrative reports.
No report.
Mr. Manning?
No report, Mayor. Excuse me.
Mr.
Any
Manning, I
questions?
want to compliment you on revising the general employment application form,
Yes.
to removing any reference to arrests prior to an offer of employment. I want to thank you.
Yeah. Implementing township policy.
Yes. Mr. Desiderio,
I have no report, Mayor.
I have something for you, too.
Hey.
There is a property on Maplewood Avenue, 57 Maplewood Avenue. There was a fire there.
Yes, there was.
And Mr. Mittermeier has ordered the property to be demolished, and the insurance company came back through their attorney saying that their determination was that the building is repairable.
Okay.
So they had an engineer's report. Mr. Mittermeier lifted the order to demolish, and We sent the insurance company over there to clean up some, and they have done that. And now we find that the
They
property...
haven't. No, they haven't.
There were some bags in the back that they cleaned up. Now they have, the bank is, or the sheriff is foreclosing on the property on June 3rd. So I wanted to ask you if you could work with Mr. Mittermeier to see if we could get some resolution to this. Sure. And I will give you, after the end of the meeting, the information on the
Will do.
the foreclosure. I just think that we have to, it's Wells Fargo and some insurance company, and there's talk about whether the arson squad is still investigating, but it's gone on way too long.
Yeah. Well, if Mr. Mittermeier has contact information, which he obviously does from the insurance office, we should be able to get some answers.
Okay. And the other question I had for you, Mr. Desiderio, is we received a proposed ordinance from Mr. Malavasi on the streets under moratorium, the streets and sidewalks. This is for PSE&G. If PSE&G
Yes.
cuts up,
Yes.
you looked at it and you had one question, and
I was satisfied.
you were
yes.
satisfied with
Yeah.
that. Okay. So, Mr. Ryan, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to put it on? This is the moratorium to force PSE. Essentially, this was discussed in planning and engineering.
Yeah, we should definitely do it.
And it says if anybody, but it was really for PSE&G, if they open the street no less than 60 days, if they open the street within 5 years after the road is paved.
We should definitely do this.
They have to repave it. They have to actually mill and repave it, as opposed to just filling in that little patch. They have to go and really cut and repave the whole area.
It applies to Jersey American, too. We should definitely do
water, any utility, or anybody.
it. Joint meeting, too. But,
So the thing is, we want to bring this up, so we'll put it on for introduction at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we should.
Mr. Manning can tell Mr. Malavasi at tomorrow's meeting, and it'll go on the agenda.
Okay. That's it that I have for you. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Desiderio? Ms. Fritzen?
A few things. Election Day, primary election day is Tuesday, June 3rd, and polls are open in all of our polling locations from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Hence, the need to move the Township Committee meeting to Wednesday, June 4th, and as the mayor stated, that'll be our initial meeting at the Police and Court Building. And I think we're doing a good job already of getting the word out through different means in addition to public notices, which maybe not everybody does read, but it's on the website. We're going a month early. We're going to be there June, July, August, and September. So potentially 7 or 8 meetings. The other thing is the liquor license renewals. I'm going to try to get as many as I can for approval on the first meeting in June. Currently, our inspectors, departments that are involved with reports are beginning back to me with any violations, because as we all know, this is our leverage time to get property maintenance issues taken care of, and any other violations, court, fire, police. So I'll be giving you a report and try to get as many on for the first meeting in June. Let me just note, we have several licensees that, 2 in particular, that have closed this past year, and we have a couple pockets, so. Thank you.
I have one item. You asked us if we're interested in finding out about the foreclosed properties.
Yeah, I don't have a spreadsheet. What would happen over the last several years is, by law, the clerk is notified, and then I would pass the information on to both the finance office and Mr. Mittermeier.
I would like to get notified.
All right, so what I probably do is, rather than scan a stack like this to all of you, we'll do our own spreadsheet
Right.
by the end of this week, early part of next week, and get it to you.
Because people ask us all the time about what's happening with such and
How
such a
far
property.
back do you want to go?
Oh, I don't think we have,
As far as you have, right?
If they're still
I'm
active.
not interested in 10 years ago.
Well, I didn't get them 10
Well, no,
years
is
ago.
it still foreclosed?
I didn't get them 10 years
how
ago.
far back does it go?
I'd say we've been getting them for about 3 years now. That's it.
But the current list that you have, those are active.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused as well.
There's pre-foreclosures that are on the county website, and then they let you know. I don't know what your list is, though.
I get the foreclosures mailed, and I never really hear after that what the resolution was to them.
Oh, okay. So in a sense, maybe I'm just exaggerating a bit here. 80% of your stack may actually no longer be in foreclosure.
Correct. It's a notification really on behalf of the township to know what building might be sitting vacant, might become problematic, and also for the tax office.
Yeah,
How difficult is it to do all of them?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not really concerned about whether something was in foreclosure 10 years ago. I just want to.
3 years.
I don't
Well,
have,
even 3 years
I
ago,
never
if it's not,
Active.
if it's.
Oh, they could still be active.
Oh no, no, I know, I understand that, but if any
interested in the
number of
active
the things, yeah, I just want to see the active ones, I guess, but I don't know if that's determinable.
No, it's not from what you said.
We don't know that.
We don't know.
But maybe we could start to trace that if we had this spreadsheet and we have all of them. Maybe our, Mr. Mittermeier can tell us, or our tax assessor or whomever, they might have changed hands and they now have taxpayer. or
Yeah,
whatever.
I guess I'd want to see that as well, because if you're equally saying, oh, 3 years, definitely there's some active, well, if we cut it off arbitrarily 3 years, we may miss something that's 4 years or 5 years. So I don't know, I'm really concerned about the active ones. If it's been 5 years or 2 years or 1 year, that's.
We only have a list that goes back 3 years.
Okay, so your stack is 3 years, and basically you're saying everything.
Only started getting them on the high side 3 years ago.
Okay.
And
Well,
some of them-
then everything is everything then.
And if I understand it right, some of them might no longer be in foreclosure, but we have no way of knowing that.
Right. But Mr. Manning, you're saying you're somehow might be
Maybe
able
we
to
can
whittle
find
the
out.
list down somewhat. Okay, it's a start. I'd be interested in it as well.
Okay.
Anything else for Ms. Fritzen? Okay. Ms. Leventhal.
Okay. The Maplewood Loves Wellness Walking Pedometer Program is in full swing. We're in our 4th week, and I hope my colleagues who know who they are wearing their pedometers. So we've had a presentation, and we'll have another one. There's a walk every week, and a reporting in of total steps. This is from funds that the neighborhood program of Overlook Medical Center contributed to Maplewood Loves Wellness last year. So how you doing today?
7,500 steps, and it's 3.5 miles, and 2,877 aerobic steps.
Good for you.
Yep.
That's quite good.
How many? India.
And you, Mr. Manning?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh.
Very long.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan, are you done?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Those of you who were able to come out last Saturday saw what a wonderful 7th Green Day was like in Maplewood. Families and kids with smiles on their faces, lots and lots of activities for children. Our volunteers are just phenomenal and have somehow gotten the green gods on their side because the weather was again beautiful. So it was good seeing all of you there. The Army Corps of Engineers is having a public meeting on the Rahway River stormwater problem. This will be in Cranford on May 28th, and they have invited the public, so if we could put a notice, get it from the Army Corps, and I could get it for you from the Army Corps, and then we can put it on the website. anybody looking to see the time or the address. The rain garden that was built with lots of sharing, but mostly by the Maplewood Garden Club and funds from New Jersey American Water, is being officially opened on June 28th at 10 o'clock. There'll be a ceremony from the Garden Club, and everyone's invited to come by and learn more about what the rain garden is. We passed a resolution earlier about the girls in Nigeria, and I believe that an event application will be put in by a group called Bring Back Our Girls, Maplewood resident, who would just ask people to gather and walk around the Memorial Park to raise awareness in the next couple of weeks. I don't know if people saw this or not. There's two things in the New Jersey League of Municipalities magazine this month, and if you have it, it will answer. It's written in language that makes energy aggregation understood. So besides what Mr. Manning has sent everybody, the articles in here will, I believe, help you quite a bit. But the big thing in here is on page 10, it talks about a website having information, website information becomes a smartphone app, and it's Maplewood. Yes. So this is to congratulate our administration and our communications committee on getting us notified that way, noticed that way. And I also just want to present to our administration a legislative resolution from Senator Cody, Assemblyman McKeon, and Assemblywoman Jacey. This is to congratulate Maplewood on its 7th Green Day, a town that is committed to living green for the sake of our families. So I'll pass this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Larrier?
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Ryan?
No report, Mayor.
A couple things. This Sunday is...
Forget Mr. Brownlee.
Mr. Brownlee.
Oh, Mr. Brownlee. I'm sorry. Mr. Brownlee. Just testing to see if you were still here. Yes, you are. Sorry for that. Mr. Brownlee, do you have any report? Not 16 items, I hope.
No report.
I knew that.
Mr. Brownlee, that was very well done.
Very good.
Very
good.
well
Made me
done.
feel bad. So, if I might continue. Okay. This Sunday is Mayfest on Springfield Avenue from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. There are 135 vendors, more than ever before, and it should be a great day weather-wise, so hopefully you come out. This Monday at 9 a.m., the Memorial Day Parade kicks off. We'll be going up West Parker to Maplewood Avenue, down through the village, and back here at Town Hall. And then after the ceremony, the duck race takes place over at the river.
Are you riding or walking?
Ducks are floating.
No, I'm talking about you. Are you riding?
No, I'm
riding?
walking.
You're
this
riding.
year.
Or
I'm
walking?
walking. I'm back walking.
Okay.
Well, I might need help getting up the hill.
I mean, you could count the steps. I mean,
I
you
might.
pedometers.
We do that fireman's carry him up the hill.
That would be good. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that I'm going to be circulating a letter I received from the New Jersey Building Officials Association, and Mr. Mittermeier has let me know that it was coming. Anyway, there is there's a bill to require new 1- and 2-family dwellings to have the installation of residential fire sprinklers. And sprinklers on new buildings, and the building officials are in favor of it. The bill was never enacted. I believe the governor did not sign it. I'm not sure. I don't think he vetoed it. I think it just died without action. So anyway, they're asking towns to adopt resolutions. So I think this would be an interesting discussion because there are some pros and cons about doing it. Cost, but then there's the cost of lives too. So. And that is all I have. Again, we're meeting June 4th, which is a Wednesday, and we're meeting at the Police and Court Building on Springfield Avenue. Mr. Desiderio.
I just want to ask Ms. Leventhal, there had been some emails with regard to Assembly Bill 4147. You want to do something with regard to that?
Do something with it?
You want a resolution on that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I thought that my last email indicated that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
why don't you just say what that is to everyone?
What are the numbers again?
4147 is what I have. Assembly Bill
4147, yeah. This is a bill that's come back to this session of the legislators that affects our bidding process. The language that's added is the advertisement for bids for construction projects projected to cost in excess of $1.5 million shall include the Board of Education or its purchasing agents or municipalities. It doesn't say that, but elsewhere it does. So it has to include the projected cost estimate ranges for the base bid contract. And this totally interferes with the competitive bid process. So
Bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's the joint meeting was the first one to bring it up. You know, $500,000 isn't too much in terms of their construction, but I would like very much for my colleagues to consider passing this resolution at our next meeting in objection to this bill, which the League of Municipalities also has asked us to do.
Anybody have anything else?
Move to adjourn.
We'll move to, is there a second? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. We'll see you on Wednesday, June 4th at the Police and Court Building.